The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slowly opened with a deep rumbling sound that echoed through the vast hall. Admiral Jake Morrison walked forward with steady steps, his blue uniform crisp and clean despite the long journey to reach this place. Behind him followed Dr. Lisa Cameron, her face calm but her hands slightly shaking as she carried the datapad containing humanity's final defense. The chamber stretched up so high that the ceiling disappeared into shadows above them. Hundreds of alien beings sat in curved rows that formed a perfect circle around the central speaking platform. Jake had been here many times before, but today felt different. Today the air seemed heavier, and the usual quiet murmurs of conversation had stopped completely. Chancellor Vex High rose from his massive throne-like chair at the highest point of the chamber. His reptilian form towered over everyone else, green scales catching the light from the floating orbs that illuminated the room. His yellow eyes fixed on Jake with what humans might call disgust, though reading alien emotions was always difficult. Admiral Morrison of the human species. Vex High's voice boomed through hidden speakers, translated instantly into perfect English. You stand before this council to hear the final judgment regarding your species' membership in the Galactic Confederation. Jake nodded once, but said nothing. He had learned long ago that speaking too soon in this chamber only made things worse. The alien delegates shifted in their seats, some leaning forward with interest, others turning away as if they could not bear to watch what was about to happen. The charges against humanity had been reviewed by all member species. Vex High continued, his forked tongue flicking out briefly. Your kind stands accused of aggressive expansion beyond agreed boundaries. You have taken resources from contested systems without proper authorization. Most seriously, you have spread your cultural ideas to developing species, disrupting their natural growth patterns. Dr. Cameron stepped forward slightly, but Jake held up one hand to stop her. Not yet. Let them finish their speech first. A new voice spoke from the left side of the chamber. Ambassador Kreeth of the insect-like hive species clicked her mandibles together before speaking. The evidence shows human colonies in 17 systems that were designated as observation zones only. Your mining operations have exceeded sustainable limits in 9 additional systems. These actions show a pattern of disregard for galactic law. Another alien, this one looking like a floating jellyfish made of crystal, added its thoughts. Human concepts of individual freedom have caused unrest on 6 allied worlds. Traditional, social structures that maintained peace for thousands of years have been disrupted. 3 species have requested our intervention to prevent further cultural contamination. Jake felt his jaw tighten, but kept his expression neutral. Cultural contamination. That was their term for teaching other species that they didn't have to. Live under the thumb of ancient rulers who claimed divine right to power. Admiral Morrison, Vex High said, you may present your final statement. Jake walked to the center of the speaking platform, his boots clicking on the smooth stone floor. He looked up at the hundreds of alien faces surrounding him, then began to speak in a clear, strong voice. Honored delegates, humanity has always acted within the spirit of galactic cooperation. Our expansion has brought aid to struggling colonies and shared technology freely with any species willing to learn. When the Corinthian plague threatened to wipe out millions, human doctors worked day and night to develop a cure that we shared without asking for payment. He paused, letting his words sink in. When the Andorian trade routes were attacked by pirates, human ships patrolled those routes for 2 years without asking for territory in return. When the great solar storm threatened the Centauri colonies, human engineers designed the shield generators that saved 6 billion lives. Dr. Cameron stepped forward and activated her datapad. Holographic images appeared in the air above the platform, showing human aid missions, shared technologies, and peaceful first contacts with dozens of species. Our rapid development is not aggression, Jake continued. It is natural growth. Every species in this chamber once expanded rapidly when they first reached the stars. The difference is that we have tried to lift others up with us instead of holding them down. A low rumble of discussion swept through the chamber, but Vixai raised one clawed hand for silence. The Council has heard your words, Admiral Morrison. However, the decision has already been made through proper procedures in voting. Jake felt his heart sink, though he had expected this outcome. The trial had been a show for the younger species. The real decision had been made in closed meetings weeks ago. By unanimous vote of the Inner Council and majority vote of the full Assembly, humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Confederation. All human colonies beyond your home system must be abandoned within one standard galactic year. All trade agreements are terminated immediately. Any human vessel found outside the Sol system after the deadline will be considered an act of war against the Galactic Confederation. The words hit Jake like physical blows, but he kept standing straight. Behind him, he heard Dr. Cameron take a sharp breath, but she too remained silent. You have 30 local days to remove all human presence from Confederation space, Vexhai concluded. This session is ended. The floating orbs dimmed, and the alien delegates began to file out of the chamber through dozens of different exits. Jake and Lisa stood alone on the platform for several minutes, neither speaking. Finally, Lisa broke the silence. 47 colonies, Jake. Over 12 million people. How do we tell them they have to abandon everything they've built? Jake turned to look at her, and she was surprised to see something that looked almost like satisfaction in his eyes. We don't tell them to abandon anything, Lisa. We tell them they're free. Free? Jake, we've been cast out, exiled, cut off from the rest of the galaxy. No, Jake said quietly, looking back at the empty throne where Vexhai had sat. They think they're punishing us by sending us to our room. They have no idea. They just cut the chains that were holding us back. They walked together toward the exit, their footsteps echoing in the empty chamber. As they reached the great doors, Jake stopped and looked back one more time at the place where humanity's fate had been decided. Lisa, how long have we been members of this confederation? 87 years, she replied immediately. And in all that time, how many new technologies were we allowed to develop? Lisa thought for a moment. The Council had to approve all research above basic level. Most of our applications were denied for being too dangerous or destabilizing. How many systems were we allowed to colonize? Only those that other species didn't want. Usually the difficult ones with harsh conditions. How many times were we told to limit our population growth, our industrial development, our military expansion? Lisa began to understand where he was going. Every year at the annual review, Jake smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. They just told us we don't have to follow their rules anymore. We can develop any technology we want. We can expand wherever we choose. We can build whatever kind of society we think is best. They walked through the doors and into the corridor beyond, where Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner was waiting with a security detail. His young face was tight with anger. Sir, this is wrong. We should appeal to the secondary courts or request a review by the neutral arbiters. No appeals, Alex, Jake said firmly. We're going home. And then we're going to show this galaxy what humans can really do when nobody is holding us back. The journey to the docking bay took 20 minutes through corridors filled with aliens from dozens of species. Some looked at the humans with curiosity, others with pity, and a few with what might have been respect. Jake noticed that several of the younger species representatives made brief eye contact and nodded slightly, as if they understood what had really happened here today. The human delegation boarded their ship, the U.S. Meridian, and prepared for the 3-week journey back to Earth. As the ship pulled away from the massive space station that housed the Galactic Council, Jake stood at the observation window and watched it shrink into the distance. Admiral, Alex said quietly, What are your orders? Jake continued to watch the station disappear among the stars. Send a message to Earth Command, Priority 1. Tell them to begin Operation New Dawn immediately. Sir, there is no Operation New Dawn in our current mission files. Jake turned away from the window, and Alex was struck by the look of fierce determination in his commander's eyes. There is now, son. There is now. 6 months had passed since the U-Eus Meridian brought the news of exile back to Earth. The blue planet that had once seemed so peaceful now buzzed with activity that could be seen even from space. Massive construction projects dotted every continent, and the orbital shipyards around. Luna worked day and night with lights that never dimmed. Dr. Lisa Cameron stood in her new office high above Geneva, looking out at the Alps while reviewing reports that would have been impossible to imagine just months ago. Her title was now Director of Galactic Affairs, a department that officially did not exist but employed over 50,000 people across the solar system. Lisa, you need to see this, came a voice from behind her. She turned to find Dr. Kevin Walsh, a quantum physicist whose wild hair and excited expression had become familiar sights in the research centers. He carried a datapad that glowed with complex mathematical equations. What is it, Kevin? Lisa asked, though she could already tell from his expression that it was something big. Remember those safety protocols the Council insisted we follow? The ones they said were necessary to prevent accidents with zero-point energy? Kevin's voice shook with excitement. They weren't safety protocols, Lisa. They were limiters. Lisa felt her heart skip a beat. What do you mean? Kevin activated his datapad, and a three-dimensional image appeared in the air between them. It showed the internal structure of a typical Council-approved energy generator, with red lines marking the restricted components. Look at this, Kevin pointed to the red sections. Every single limitation they imposed was designed to keep our energy output below a specific threshold. Not for safety, but to prevent us from achieving true zero-point manipulation. You're saying they deliberately held back our technology? I'm saying they held back everyone's technology, Kevin replied, his voice growing stronger. Every species that joins the Council gets the same limitations. It keeps them dependent and prevents anyone from developing power sources that could threaten Council authority. Lisa stared at the hologram, understanding the implications. How long have you been working without the limiters? 3 weeks, Kevin grinned. Lisa, we've increased energy output by 400%. And that's just the beginning. Without the artificial restrictions, we can achieve things the Council claimed were impossible. Before Lisa could respond, her communication device chimed with an urgent message. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on the small screen, and she could see the bridge of a ship behind him. Lisa, I need you and your team at the Ceres facility immediately. We've made contact. Contact with who, Jake? Species that aren't part of the Council. They've been watching us, and they want to talk. 2 hours later, Lisa found herself aboard a fast transport heading toward the asteroid belt. The Ceres mining facility had been expanded far beyond its original purpose, now serving as both a research center and a disguised military base. As her ship approached the massive structure built into the asteroid's surface, she could see dozens of other vessels docked at various ports. Admiral Morrison met her at the airlock, his expression serious but hopeful. They call themselves the Nexari, he explained, as they walked through corridors that had been carved from solid rock. They're traders and explorers, and they've been operating outside Council space for over 2 centuries. Why haven't we heard of them before? Because the Council pretends they don't exist, Morrison replied. Any species that refuses to join or gets expelled gets written out of their official history. As far as Council records show, there are no intelligent species beyond their borders. They entered a large chamber that had been converted into a meeting room. Sitting across from several human officers was the strangest alien Lisa had ever seen. The being was roughly humanoid, but seemed to be made of living metal that shifted and flowed like liquid silver. Its face had no fixed features, but somehow managed to convey expressions clearly. "Dr. Cameron," the alien's voice came from speakers around the room, though Lisa couldn't see a mouth. "I am Trade Master Zephyr of the Nexari. We have watched your species with great interest." Lisa took a seat across from the alien, trying not to stare at the way its form continued to shift and change. "Trade Master, Admiral Morrison says you've been operating outside Council space. How many others like you are there?" "Many," Zephyr replied, and Lisa thought she detected something like amusement in the translated voice. "The galaxy is far larger than the Council admits. There are over 300 intelligent species that they do not acknowledge. Some refused to join, others were expelled as you were, and many developed intelligence after the Council decided to stop looking for new members." Captain Maria Santos, Morrison's intelligence officer, leaned forward. "Why are you contacting us now?" Zephyr's form seemed to brighten slightly. "Because you are the first expelled species to show real growth, instead of simply trying to get back into the Council's favor. Most species that are cast out spend decades begging to be readmitted. You began building something better." Morrison activated a wall display showing a map of known space. "Trade Master, we need to understand the true scope of what we're dealing with. The Council claims to represent most of galactic civilization. The Council controls perhaps 30% of inhabited space," Zephyr replied. "They maintain their power through control of key trade routes and by preventing younger species from developing certain technologies. They are powerful, but not all-powerful." Lisa felt excitement building in her chest. "You said there are over 300 species outside Council control. Would any of them be interested in cooperation with humanity?" "Many would be very interested." Zephyr's form shifted to what might have been a smile. "Especially if you can offer something the Council cannot, such as freedom to develop without artificial limitations, equal partnership instead of tributary status, and most importantly, the chance to build something new instead of maintaining something old." Over the next several hours, Lisa learned things that changed her understanding of the galaxy completely. The Council was not the benevolent organization it claimed to be, but rather an empire that maintained control through carefully managed dependence. Species were allowed to develop only to certain levels, then held in place through restrictions disguised as safety measures and cultural preservation. "The technology gaps between Council species aren't natural," Zephyr explained. "They're manufactured. A species that joined the Council 500 years ago has access to better technology than one that joined 50 years ago, regardless of their natural capabilities." Kevin Walsh, who had been listening quietly, suddenly spoke up. "That's why. Our rapid development made them nervous. We were advancing too fast for our position in their hierarchy." "Exactly," Zephyr confirmed. "Your species shows the same pattern we see in all truly free civilizations. Without artificial limits, intelligence naturally pushes boundaries and creates rapid advancement." Morrison stood and walked to the display showing galactic territory. "Trade Master, if we were to propose an alternative to Council membership, how many species might be interested? If you can prove that your alternative offers real benefits, possibly dozens immediately, and many more over time. But you would need to demonstrate that you can provide protection, trade opportunities, and technological advancement without the oppressive control structure the Council uses." Lisa looked around the room at the human officers, seeing the same realization in their eyes that she felt in her heart. They weren't just building a response to exile. They were building the foundation for something that could change the galaxy. "Trade Master," she said carefully, "would the Nexari be willing to serve as intermediaries? To help us contact other free species and begin forming these partnerships?" Zephyr's form brightened considerably. Dr. Cameron, we have been waiting 3 centuries for someone to ask that question. Morrison activated his communication device. All stations, this is Admiral Morrison. Operation New Dawn is now Operation New Galaxy. Begin Phase 2 immediately. As alerts sounded throughout the facility and humans began rushing to new assignments, Lisa realized that humanity's exile had just become the first step in reshaping galactic civilization. The Council had tried to send them to their room, but instead they had opened the door to the rest of the galaxy. "Jake," she said quietly, as Zephyr's form began to fade, the alien returning to its ship, "I think we're going to need a bigger room." Morrison smiled as he watched displays showing increased activity throughout human space. Ships launching from hidden bases, construction beginning on new facilities, and communication arrays reaching out toward the unknown regions of the galaxy. "Don't worry, Lisa," he replied. "We're about to build one." 2 years after the exile, Commander Rachel Morgan stood on the observation deck of the UES Explorer, watching 3 suns rise over the horizon of a world that had never known human footsteps. The planet below them was the third world in this Kepler 442 system, and according to their surveys, it was perfect for human colonization. "Commander, we're receiving final confirmation from the orbital survey teams," reported Lieutenant Dan Cooper from the bridge. "All 3 planets in this system are suitable for settlement, and the asteroid belts contain mineral deposits that exceed anything we've found before." Rachel nodded, still looking down at the blue and green world that would soon become humanity's first major colony outside the solar system. "Send word back to Earth Command. Tell them we've found our new capital." The Kepler 442 system had been marked on Council charts as too dangerous for development due to its position near several unstable hyperspace routes. But human scientists working with Mexari navigators had discovered that the routes weren't unstable at all. They were simply different from the standard patterns the Council used, requiring new navigation techniques that the older species had never bothered to learn. 6 months later, the first colonists arrived to find a world that seemed designed for human habitation. Dr. Lisa Cameron, now serving as Director of Colonial Development, supervised the landing of the first permanent settlement from her temporary headquarters on the largest moon. "The environmental readings are incredible," she told Admiral Morrison during their daily briefing. "The atmosphere is almost identical to Earth's. The gravity is only 8% lighter, and the soil composition is perfect for Earth plants. It's like finding a second Earth." Morrison smiled as he reviewed the reports on his datapad. "Emmy, word from the Nexari about Council reaction to our expansion?" "Trade Master Zephyr says they're concerned, but not yet taking direct action," Lisa replied. "The Council seems to think we'll run out of resources and come crawling back within a few years. They clearly don't understand human determination." Morrison said, "How are the construction projects proceeding?" Lisa activated a holographic display showing the rapid growth of New Geneva, a settlement that was quickly becoming a city. "The first residential districts are completed, and the industrial zones are ahead of schedule. The Nexari construction techniques are amazing. Jake, we're building in harmony with the planet's ecosystem instead of fighting against it." The construction of New Geneva represented everything that made human colonies different from Council settlements. Instead of the sterile, enclosed cities favored by most galactic species, humans had learned to blend their architecture with natural landscapes. Buildings grew up like trees from the hillsides, their walls made of a material that breathed with the planet's atmosphere while providing perfect climate control. Dr. Kevin Walsh arrived on Kepler 442b 3 months after the first colonists, bringing with him a team of researchers and equipment it would have been impossible to transport under Council regulations. His new laboratory was built into a mountain overlooking New Geneva, its fusion reactors powerful enough to support experiments that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Lisa, you have to see this, Kevin called excitedly as she toured his new facility. We've made another breakthrough, something that's going to change everything. He led her to a chamber where a small metal cube sat on a platform surrounded by complex machinery. Watch this, Kevin said, pressing a series of controls. The cube disappeared with a soft pop of displaced air, then reappeared on another platform across the room. Teleportation, Lisa breathed, hardly believing what she had seen. Short range for now, Kevin explained, but the principle is sound. We can move objects instantly across space without the need for ships or transport systems. Give us another year, and we'll be teleporting entire vessels between star systems. The implications hit Lisa immediately. Kevin, if we can teleport ships instantly, we can connect all our colonies without worrying about travel time or council blockades. Exactly, Kevin grinned. And that's not all. We've been working with Nexari scientists on something even bigger. Come see. He led her to another section of the laboratory, where alien and human researchers worked side by side around a massive circular device that hummed with barely contained energy. The lead Nexari scientist, who had chosen the name Silver for easier human pronunciation, gestured excitedly with its flowing metallic arms. Dr. Cameron, we are very close to achieving instantaneous communication across galactic distances. Silver's translated voice filled the room. Combined with your teleportation technology, this will allow coordination between colonies that spans the entire galaxy. Lisa stared at the device, understanding that they were looking at technology that would make the Council's communication networks obsolete overnight. How long until it's operational? 2 months for the first test, Kevin replied. 6 months for a full network linking all human colonies and allied species. Meanwhile, on the other side of New Geneva, General Frank Collins was establishing something that had never existed in galactic history: a truly integrated military force. The Commonwealth Defense Force, as it was now called, combined human tactical thinking with alien technologies and mixed species crews. The key is flexibility, Collins explained to a group of newly arrived officers from Earth. Council military doctrine is based on rigid hierarchies and standardized responses. Every species fights the same way their ancestors did 1,000 years ago. We're going to be different. He gestured to a mixed group of humans and aliens training together in the courtyard below. Every unit includes personnel from at least 3 species. Humans provide tactical innovation and leadership. Nexari provide technical expertise and adaptation, and our other allies contribute their specialized abilities. The result is military units that can adapt to any situation. Lieutenant Colonel Amy Foster, recently arrived from Earth's Marine Corps, watched the mixed units training with fascination. Sir, how do you handle communication issues and cultural differences? We don't handle them, we use them, Collins replied. Different perspectives lead to better solutions. When a human thinks one way and a Nexari thinks another way, the combination usually produces something neither species would have thought of alone. The success of the Commonwealth Defense Force became clear when they faced their first real test. A group of space pirates, emboldened by the absence of council patrols in the region, attacked a supply convoy heading to the new colonies. The response was swift and decisive. Captain Roy Davis, commanding the CDF vessel Freedom, led a mixed squadron of human and alien ships against the pirates. The battle lasted less than an hour and ended with the complete capture of the pirate fleet without a single casualty on either side. How did you do it? Admiral Morrison asked during the debriefing. The pirates expected us to fight like council forces, Davis explained. Standard formations, predictable tactics, lengthy negotiations before action. Instead, we used human speed and flexibility combined with Nexari technical superiority. We jammed their communications, disabled their weapons, and boarded their ships before they understood what was happening. The success at stopping the pirates sent a message throughout the region that the growing human Commonwealth was not defenseless. More importantly, it demonstrated to other species that cooperation with humans offered real benefits. Within weeks of the pirate incident, delegations from 3 more species requested meetings with Commonwealth representatives. The Andromedans, who had been part of the Council for centuries, sent secret envoys expressing dissatisfaction with Council policies. The Wolf 359 Collective made formal contact, offering to share advanced manufacturing techniques in exchange for Commonwealth protection of their trade routes. Most significantly, the Taotians became the first Council species to openly defect. Their ambassador, a tall, graceful being named Wind Through Stars, arrived at New Geneva with a formal declaration of independence from Council authority. "My people have watched your rapid development with great interest," Wind Through Stars explained to Lisa and Morrison during the formal reception. "The Council promised us advancement and prosperity when we joined 300 years ago. Instead, they gave us stagnation and dependence. You offer something we had almost forgotten was possible, the chance to grow." The Taotian defection sent shockwaves through Council space. For the first time in centuries, a member species had voluntarily left the Confederation to join what the Council was beginning to call the Human Rebellion. Dr. Cameron stood once again on the observation deck, but now she looked out over a city of 2 million beings from 7 different species. New Geneva had become the unofficial capital of something that was growing far beyond what anyone had expected when humanity was first exiled. "Admiral," she said to Morrison, who had joined her to watch the sunset over their new world, "I think we need to make this official." "What do you mean?" "I mean, we need to stop calling this a collection of colonies and start calling it what it really is. A new galactic government." Morrison nodded slowly, watching ships from dozens of species landing and taking off from the spaceport below. "The Terran Commonwealth?" "Something like that," Lisa smiled. "Something that offers what the Council never could: real freedom, real cooperation, and real growth." As the 3.5 years after humanity's exile, Chancellor Vex High stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council with his yellow eyes blazing with barely controlled fury. The same chamber where he had pronounced humanity's banishment now buzzed with worried conversations as delegates from across Council space gathered to address what their intelligence services called the human problem. "Fellow delegates," Vex High's voice boomed through the hall, cutting through the nervous chatter. "We face a threat unlike any in our recorded history. The humans we cast out have not learned humility. Instead, they have built something that challenges the very foundation of our galactic order." Ambassador Kreeth of the Hive species clicked her mandibles anxiously. "Chancellor, our latest reports show the human Commonwealth now controls 62 star systems. They have formed alliances with species we have never heard of, and their technology appears to exceed our own in several critical areas. The crystal, being known as luminous, added its concerns. Most disturbing is their influence on our own member species. The Taotian defection was just the beginning. 3 more species have submitted formal requests to withdraw from the Confederation." Vex High activated the chamber's main display, showing a map of the galaxy with red zones marking Commonwealth territory. The red areas had grown dramatically since the last briefing, creating a substantial block of space that operated completely outside Council control. "The immediate cause for this emergency session," Vex High continued, "is their recent action at Sigma Draconis 7. They have liberated what they call a slave world, disrupting mining operations that have functioned smoothly for over 2 centuries. Liberation of Sigma Draconis 7 had indeed shocked the Council. Admiral Morrison himself had led the operation, arriving with a fleet of 30 Commonwealth vessels to find a world where millions of beings labored under conditions that humans considered unacceptable. The planet's overseer, a council appointed administrator named Gorthik, had tried to resist when Commonwealth forces landed. These workers are bound by legal contracts. He had protested as human and allied troops secured the mining facilities. Their labor agreements are recognized by galactic law. Captain Billy Thompson, leading the ground forces, had looked at the cramped dormitories where workers slept 12 to a room, the inadequate food distribution centers, and the medical facilities. That treated only injuries that prevented work. "These aren't contracts," he had replied. "These are slavery agreements with legal language." Within hours of Commonwealth control, the transformation began. Dr. Lisa Cameron arrived with teams of administrators, doctors, and engineers who began implementing changes that seemed impossible to the planet's population. Workers were moved to proper housing. Medical care was provided to everyone regardless of their ability to work. And most shocking of all, they were given choices about their future. "You mean we can leave?" asked Verity, a young member of the cat-like Falarian species who had been born on Sigma Draconis 7 and had never known any life beyond the mines. "You can leave, you can stay and work for fair wages, or you can join the Commonwealth Defense Force if you're interested in military service," Thompson explained. "The choice is entirely yours." The response was overwhelming. Instead of fleeing the planet as council leaders expected, most workers chose to stay and help build something better. Within months, Sigma Draconis 7 was producing more resources than ever before. But now the profits were shared among the workers, instead of flowing to distant council accounts back in the council chamber. Vex High was presenting intelligence reports that painted a disturbing picture for the established order. "The humans have developed weapons technology that makes our fleets obsolete," he reported. "Their ships can appear anywhere instantly through some form of teleportation. Their communication systems allow coordination across impossible distances. Most dangerous of all, they have proven that worlds can be more productive under their system than under ours." Admiral Korethva of the Zephyrian fleet rose from her seat. "Chancellor, I have reviewed our military capabilities. The humans may have advanced technology, but they are still vastly outnumbered. A decisive show of force could end this rebellion before it spreads further. What do you propose, Admiral?" "Assemble the largest fleet in galactic history," Korethva replied, her crystalline form glowing with determination. 200 ships from the core worlds, supported by vessels from every loyal member species. We strike at their capital world and demonstrate that defying the Council leads only to destruction." Murmurs of agreement swept through the chamber, but not all delegates seemed convinced. Ambassador Taishka, Visai's own second-in-command, spoke carefully. "Chancellor, what if the humans resist? What if this fleet action leads to a wider war?" "Then we crush them completely," Visai replied, coldly. "Better to fight one war now than face a century of rebellions as other species follow the human example." The vote was closer than Visai had expected, but the decision was made. Admiral Korethva was given command of the largest military force ever assembled, with orders to reclaim Sigma Draconis 7 and destroy the Commonwealth fleet that defended it. On New Geneva, the Commonwealth leadership received news of the approaching fleet through their network of allies and informants. Admiral Morrison stood in the command center that had been built into the mountains overlooking the city, studying displays that showed Council fleet movements across dozens of systems. 200 ships, reported Director Nathan Cross, head of Commonwealth Intelligence. "They're calling it the Grand Armada. Every major Council species has contributed vessels, and they're being supported by auxiliary fleets from minor member worlds." Dr. Lisa Cameron, now serving as Commonwealth Secretary of State, looked at the tactical displays with concern. "Jake, they outnumber our entire fleet by almost 2 to 1. Even with our technological advantages, those are difficult odds. Morrison nodded grimly. They're not trying to defeat us in battle, Lisa. They're trying to make an example. Show the galaxy that defying the Council is impossible. General Frank Collins entered the command center carrying a data pad with troop deployment information. Admiral, I have reports from all Commonwealth worlds. Every species is offering to contribute forces. The Nexari are providing their entire merchant fleet as support vessels, and the Tausetians want to send their best pilots. How long until the Council fleet reaches Sigma Draconis 7? Morrison asked. 6 days, Cross replied. They're moving slowly, making sure every species in the region sees them passing. It's psychological warfare as much as military action. Morrison walked to the large window overlooking New Geneva, where he could see beings from dozens of species working together in the streets below. Human children played with young Nexari, while Tausetian artists created sculptures that incorporated both their crystalline techniques and human metalworking. It was everything the Council claimed was impossible. Different species not just coexisting, but thriving together. Frank, how many ships can we have at Sigma Draconis 7 when they arrive? 47 combat vessels, plus support ships, Collins replied. Every captain has volunteered, even though they understand the odds. Lisa stepped up beside Morrison at the window. Jake, maybe we should consider evacuation. Save our people and our ships for a fight we can win. Morrison was quiet for a long moment, watching the mixed crowds below. Lisa, do you remember what I told you in the council chamber? About them not understanding what they had done? You said they thought they were sending us to our room, but they were really setting us free. That's right. Morrison turned from the window with a look of determination. They still don't understand. They think this is about military superiority or territorial control. They don't realize they're fighting against an idea. What idea? That every intelligent being deserves the chance to reach their full potential. Morrison replied, that cooperation works better than domination. That freedom produces better results than control. He activated the command center's communication system, which connected him instantly to every Commonwealth world. This is Admiral Morrison. In 6 days, the Council will attack Sigma Draconis 7 with the largest fleet in galactic history. They believe that superior numbers will force us to submit to their authority. His voice carried across 62 star systems, reaching millions of beings who had found new hope under Commonwealth protection. They are wrong. We will meet them at Sigma Draconis 7, and we will show the galaxy that the age of Council dominance is ending. Not because we have better weapons or bigger fleets, but because we have something they can never understand. We fight not for territory or power, but for the right of every species to determine its own destiny. As Morrison's words echoed across Commonwealth space, ships began moving from dozens of worlds toward Sigma Draconis 7. Not just military vessels, but civilian ships carrying supplies, medical teams, and volunteers from every species that had found freedom under human leadership. The Council was bringing their largest fleet to crush a rebellion. What they would find instead was the birth of a new kind of galactic civilization, one that would fight not just with weapons, but with the power of an idea whose the space around Sigma Draconis V filled with the largest fleet in galactic history as Admiral Karethva's Grand Armada dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. 200 massive warships arranged themselves in the traditional council battle formation, their hulls gleaming with the authority of centuries of dominance. Each vessel carried enough firepower to level a planet, and together they represented the combined might of every major species in the Galactic Confederation. Admiral Karethva stood on the bridge of her flagship, the massive dreadnought Consuls, Wrath watching her tactical displays with satisfaction. The human Commonwealth fleet was already visible on her sensors, 47 ships arranged in a defensive formation around the liberated mining world. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, "the human fleet is maintaining position in low orbit. Around the planet. They're not retreating." "Foolish," HFY replied, her crystalline form glowing with confidence. "They think their advanced technology can overcome superior numbers. They will learn the error of that assumption." What Admiral HFY could not see was the activity taking place throughout Commonwealth space. In 17 different star systems, small teams of Commonwealth forces were materializing through teleportation technology that the Council had never imagined possible. These were not invasion forces, but liberation teams, working with local resistance movements that had been secretly organized over the past year. On the Council world of Rigel Prime, Colonel Amy Foster appeared with her team in the central government complex, just as the morning shift was beginning. The planet's population had been suppressed for generations under a rigid caste system that kept most beings in permanent servitude to a small ruling class. "Citizens of Rigel Prime," Foster announced through the planet's communication network. Her words translated into dozens of local languages. "The Commonwealth offers you a choice. You can continue to live under the system that has held you back for centuries, or you can join us in building something better." Similar scenes played out across Council space as Commonwealth teams appeared on world after world. These were not military conquests, but demonstrations of possibility, showing oppressed populations that the Council's authority was not absolute and that alternatives existed. Back at Sigma Draconis 7, Admiral Morrison watched the approaching Council fleet from the bridge of his flagship, the CNS Independence. The ship was smaller than any vessel in HFY's armada, but it incorporated technologies that made it more powerful than anything the Council had ever built. "Admiral," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving surrender demands from the Council fleet. Admiral HFY is ordering us to stand down and prepare to be boarded." Morrison smiled grimly. "Send this reply. The Commonwealth does not surrender to those who would enslave the galaxy. If the Council wants this system, they will have to take it." The first phase of the battle began as the Council fleet moved into attack formation. HFY's ships advanced in the traditional pattern that had been used successfully for centuries, with heavy dreadnoughts leading the assault, while smaller vessels provided support. What happened next was unlike anything in the history of galactic warfare. Instead of meeting the Council fleet head-on, Commonwealth ships simply vanished from their positions, teleporting instantly to new locations throughout the battle zone. The carefully planned Council assault struck empty space while Commonwealth vessels appeared behind, above, and beside the attacking formation. "Impossible," HFY breathed as her tactical displays showed Commonwealth ships materializing everywhere at once. "Ships cannot move that fast." The Commonwealth attack was devastating in its precision. Instead of trying to destroy Council vessels, they used advanced weapons that disabled enemy ships without killing their crews. Within minutes, a dozen Council dreadnoughts were floating dead in space, their weapons offline and their crews unharmed, but helpless. But the real shock came when entire Council ships began to defect in the middle of the battle. The crews of these vessels, many of whom had been watching Commonwealth broadcasts and learning about the freedom offered to liberated worlds, simply stopped fighting and declared their allegiance to the Commonwealth cause. Captain Roy Davis, commanding the Commonwealth vessel Freedom, received surrender signals from 6 Council ships simultaneously. "Admiral Morrison," he reported over the battle network, "the Council crews are saying they don't want to fight for a system that oppresses their own people." The turning point came when Admiral HFY herself was forced to watch her own officers question their orders. Commander Taishka, who had served as her second-in-command for over a decade, stood up during the battle and faced his superior. "Admiral," Taishka said quietly, "I have reviewed the intelligence reports about Commonwealth. worlds. Their people are healthier, more prosperous, and happier than our own. Why are we fighting to prevent others from achieving what we ourselves want? Similar scenes played out across the Council fleet as crews began to understand that they were not fighting to preserve galactic peace, but to maintain a system that benefited only the ruling classes of the oldest species. One by one, Council ships ceased fire and began broadcasting surrender signals. Chancellor Vex High, monitoring the battle from his command center on the Council homeworld, watched in horror as his grand armada disintegrated without a single ship being destroyed. This is not military defeat, he realized with growing panic. This is ideological collapse. In a desperate final gambit, Vex High activated the Council's most secret weapon, a planet-killer device that had been hidden in the Sigma Draconis system for decades. If he could not defeat the Commonwealth, he would destroy the world they were, trying to protect and show the galaxy the cost of defying Council authority. But even this desperate plan was thwarted by his own people. Admiral Taishka, now in command of the Council's wrath after Korethva's arrest by her own crew, detected the weapon's activation and immediately warned Morrison's forces. Admiral Morrison, Taishika's voice came through the communication system. Chancellor Vex High has activated a planet-killer weapon. We cannot stop it from here, but we can provide you with the technical specifications. Dr. Kevin Walsh, monitoring the battle from his mobile laboratory ship, received the weapon specifications and immediately began working on a countermeasure. Jake, he reported to Morrison, I can stop this thing, but I need 10 minutes and a direct approach to the weapon platform. Morrison didn't hesitate. You'll have both. The CN's independence, supported by 6 Commonwealth vessels and surprisingly protected by a dozen defected Council ships, fought through the automated defenses surrounding the hidden weapon platform. The battle was brief but intense, ending when Commonwealth engineers successfully disabled the planet killer just moments before it could fire. The destruction of the secret weapon marked the end of more than just the battle. News of the Council's willingness to destroy entire worlds rather than allow them freedom spread instantly through Commonwealth communication networks to every corner of the galaxy. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 43 Council worlds declared independence within hours of learning about the planet killer. 6 major species formally withdrew from the Confederation, and 3 others announced they were considering similar action. Chancellor Vex High, facing the complete collapse of his authority, made one final attempt to maintain power by declaring martial law throughout Council space. But even this failed when his own guards, led by Captain Maria Santos, who had infiltrated the Council homeworld months earlier, arrested him for crimes against galactic civilization. 6 months later, representatives from over 300 species gathered on the neutral world of Centauri Prime for the Chia Constitutional Convention that would establish the new Galactic Commonwealth. The old system of domination by ancient species was replaced by a democratic federation where every species had an equal voice in galactic affairs. Admiral Morrison, elected as the Commonwealth's first Supreme Coordinator, stood before the assembled delegates and delivered the opening address. We gather not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals seeking to build something better than what came before. The galaxy is large enough for all of us to prosper, and advanced enough for all of us to be free. Dr. Lisa Cameron, now serving as the Commonwealth's Secretary of Science, oversaw the establishment of research programs that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Without the artificial limitations imposed by the old Council, species across the galaxy began achieving technological advances that had been impossible under the previous system. 5 years after humanity's exile from the Galactic Confederation, Council Admiral Morrison stood once again on an observation deck, but this time he looked out at the construction of humanity's newest exploration vessel. The CNSS Endeavor was designed not for war, but for discovery. built to carry mixed crews into regions of the galaxy that had never been explored. Commander Susan Blake, the ship's captain, joined him at the observation window. She was young enough to have grown up entirely under the Commonwealth system, part of a generation that had never known artificial limits on their potential. "Admiral," she said, "the crew is ready for departure. We have representatives from 47 species, including several that were